In this monumental and fundamental Sikha, the Rebbe teaches us how the Rambam understands Mashiach and how it is in actual halacha and what we need to believe in. This is based on what the concept and the definition of Mashiach is, and hence what the function of Mashiach and ultimately how Mashiach will become revealed. The Rebbe begins with some questions about Mashiach, as we will see here in the Rambam itself. First question is, in the proof about Mashiach from the prophecy of Bilam, brings from King David as Mashiach Harishon, the first Mashiach. Why is that necessary when here it's about the laws of Mashiach itself? The second halacha, which is a third proof to Mashiach, it's a separate halacha as opposed to being in the first one with the other two proofs. Why is that? And in the final halacha, Dalid, where Mashiach is being described, nothing about his prophecy is mentioned, nothing about his great wisdom is mentioned, that we understand more about Mashiach. So we will understand the Rebbe's teachings, the Rebbe's Sikha, in learning the Rambam itself. The Rebbe says that the Rambam isn't merely telling us Sipur Dvorim, telling us the narrative on how things will happen, but this is actual halacha, and begins with that Melech HaMashiach is ultimately bringing to renew the kingship of David and restore the sovereignty to its initial position, initial place. In other words, there's nothing new that Mashiach is going to do. No chiddush. How will this be affected? By building the Beis Hamikdash and bringing the ingathering of the Jewish people to Israel. And as a result of that, that will enable us that we can fulfill Torah and mitzvahs as they are stated in the Torah in its fullest manner. Now in Golus, we are lacking. We are lacking the fulfillment of all of Torah and mitzvahs, and this is what Mashiach is going to bring to us. Shleimus halachos u'mitzvahs ha'Torah. He will return that to the Jewish people. This then becomes the definition of Mashiach, and this is ultimately what we need to believe in. Then the Rambam continues. It says that someone who doesn't believe this, she'eino mamin boi, this is all in the first halacha, and isn't waiting for him. Not only is he a non-believer in all of the prophets, but also in Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, this seems to be a question of belief and doesn't belong here, but belongs in Hilchos Tshuva. The Rebbe says no, because the main emphasis over here is about what we need to believe in, and therefore the Rambam mentions this here. Then the Rambam continues, and he brings proofs. The first proof he brings is that we'll have Shleimus HaTorah because the Torah itself is testifying. How will we have this? Because ultimately the Jewish people will come back to Eretz Yisrael, as the verse says, that Hashem will return the Jewish people to the land. And that, of course, will allow us to be able to fulfill all of the mitzvahs. And the second proof is that after Parshas Bilam, that also in the prophecy of Bilam, that there he speaks about two Mashiachs. The first Mashiach, the King David, who brought salvation to the Jewish people from their difficulties, and then there will be the final one, who will be Melech HaMashiach, that he will bring back everything again to its original state, the way it was formerly. And then, therefore, all the details of what happened with King David and Mashiach, there'll be similarities, as we shall soon see. But the point of this is all that the Shleimus HaTorah is what Mashiach is coming for, and everything else that happens, that we will not be under the influence of other nations. We will not, we will be, on the contrary, influence them. This was all a teitzah. This is all a consequence of the fact that we will be fulfilling Torah and mitzvahs in its fullest manner. Now, with this, we can understand why in halacha base there's a separate proof from af ba'ari miklat. Ari miklat is saying, the Rambam brings from the verse that there will be added 3 new Ari miklats, which is something that was never fulfilled. In other words, the Torah itself is telling us over here that there has to come a time where Torah and mitzvahs has to be fulfilled to its proper manner, because the Torah would not give us a commandment and that we would not have a way to fulfill it. So there will be that time. And that is the novelty in this halacha, is that Torah itself is telling us that it is incomplete, the mitzvah of Ari Miklat, and that will only be fulfilled in the times of Moshiach. And with that, then the Rambam continues in the third halacha, the al yala al daitcha. Don't think that Melech HaMashiach is someone who is a great prophet and is going to change the world. And that's how you know that he is indeed Mashiach. This is not the test. The test is ultimately that Torah, this Torah will, and its laws will be there forever. And therefore, the definition of Mashiach is the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs in its fullest. Just as a prophet is judged by the Dvarim Hasidim, the things in the future that he will say and that will come true. So likewise, Mashiach is tested by the definition. And the concept of what Mashiach is, and what is that, is of course the fulfillment of and the completion of Torah in mitzvahs. And with that concept of the third halacha, we go into the fourth halacha, which says, Ve'im yamoid melech, and when a king will arise. This is a continuation of the previous notion, that now we understand the full concept of what Mashiach is. Now, when someone will arise, how are we going to know and test that this is in fact the Melech HaMashiach? Because this person will be like King David, complete in Torah, in mitzvahs themselves. And then they will have the effect on the Jewish people by the Yochav Kol Yisrael, by compelling all of the Jewish people to follow the ways of Torah and mitzvahs. And furthermore, they will also, Yilcham Melchemes Hashem, they will fight the battles against the nations of the world in order to make sure that there isn't any negish or mevatel, anything that is a snare to the Jewish people in the fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs. When that happens, then we know that this person is becheskas, we can assume to be Mashiach. However, only when there is completion to the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs in actuality. In other words, as Rambam continues, Im also, if he did all of this, the Yitzliach and was successful and conquered the nations around, and then built the Beis HaMikdash, run a Beis HaMikdash, and gathered all of the ingatherings of the Jewish people, then we know that this is Mashiach, Havadai, most definitely Mashiach. And then we will have Chayzrim Kol HaMishpatim, that all of the laws will return, as all of the mitzvahs are detailed in the Torah, which means Shleimus v'halachas v'kiyum hamitzvah v'poel, that in actuality there will be a completion to all of Jewish law and of the mitzvahs. Then the Rambam, the Rebbe rather, adds that the first 4 proofs of Bilam, in Bilam's prophecy, are in sync with the 4 things that Mashiach has to do. The 4 things that a Mashiach has to do, that is in the 4th halacha. And briefly, the 4 ideas are that David and Moshiach, who they are themselves. Um, excuse me. And the effect that David and Moshiach have upon the Jewish people, and the effect that David and Moshiach have upon the general world that is divided into two parts. Details you can see inside of the Rambam. And with that, the Rebbe gives us a full understanding of the four halachas in chapter 11 of the Rambam.